Cannabis is the only plant that can switch sex at any time during its growing process. No other plant can go hermaphrodite as fast.
I learned today that female cockroaches can procreate without the male.
Nice.
And
Like
can just like
immaculate conception.
Just straight up just make their own eggs and just like be like, oh, like
that's crazy.
They could unsubscribe from men and just.
Is this a new trait or has this been like consistent throughout like history?
I mean, cockroaches have been around since like the dawn of time. So like it's I wouldn't expect them to have evolved and us not known about it, but I'm also not an expert. I believe the answer is this is common.
Interesting.
This is
interesting.
This is the thing. Because I had cockroaches in my dream last night. So I looked up what that
means. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Of course I did.
I'm just going back to the fry meme. Not sure if not sure if immaculate conception or fighting the patriarchy. You know, like I don't know which is which here. Like, are they just so like with men that they're just like, I'm gonna make my own babies? There you go. Like,
you know what? Yeah, animals are cool like
immaculate conception. You know, like that's cool.
That's your
Maybe the Bible was influenced by a guy that saw a female cockroach get pregnant and have babies without any males present, and he was so amazed by that fact. He's just like, Jesus Christ, that's how he is. Like, that's how the Savior was born. You know, by observing cockroaches. That'd be cool.
Other animal facts. There's nothing to do with anything. But do you know about the cuttlefish, which you probably know if you've seen South Park?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the cuttlefish is like in actual life?
Yep.
Cuttlefish is badass, right? So they can do if you know how the cuttlefish is like a type of like squid mollusk, like not a squid, I forgot what it is, but it could change, it could rapidly change its skin and its texture and its look to look like anything. It's really strange. It could mesmerize its prey with flashing lights. Very interesting stuff. As far as mating goes and things like that, if the female cuttlefish is being pursued by a male cuttlefish that she is not interested in, she will shift her form to look like a male. So he gives up.
Right.
Like literally puts on like, you know, like this is my man costume. Like I'm a man now. And the cuttlefish is like, oh shit, I thought that was a chick. And bounces.
Yeah, they're shapeshifters.
So they could choose their mate. That's awesome. Did you see that thing I posted, which I don't know if this is real or not at all, but it looked interesting, that the sperm it's not about winning the sperm race and getting to the egg. The egg actually releases hormones. We're like, we want this one.
Nice.
That's really interesting that you could repel and like that the egg repels and attracts sperm based on like things.
But doesn't that make sense though? Like how our bodies kind of regulate things and like acknowledge that foreign substances are like in the atmosphere and like what our immune system does and how it can like it's a crazy world in there, man.
I'd love to learn more about that and why and how it happens. It's so interesting.
Fuck yeah. I want to learn how we can like harness the power of the cuttlefish and do like shape shifting, like use that for like military technology and shit, where it's like you can shape shift and turn colors and camouflage. Yeah, they're amazing. They're super amazing. I love cuttlefish. And that's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks for coming and listening to Animal Facts, not necessarily about S&M, with That Bad Teacher and Master Arch.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kink Positive Podcast. I'm That Bad Teacher.
And I'm Master Arch.
We're a dom and a sub from opposite sides of the country that come together every week to share our love of kink and BDSM.
And we'll be sharing our perspectives as a professional dom and a professional educator. This podcast will contain adult topics and themes, so consider yourself warned.
We hope to lend our perspectives as kink professionals, but we are not therapists or medical professionals.
Follow us on Instagram at Kink Positive Podcast, at Elemental Kink, and at That Bad Teacher. My Twitter is at All for Arch, and you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Kink Positive Podcast for ad-free video episodes.
There's definitely like, do you hear that? Like interference and stuff this time around. It's annoying.
I
Okay.
I'm using subpar headphones though. You get that crystal clear, good. So
a few people are saying that I got to get you better ones. I thought it was such a difference since you started using your microphone. Thank goodness to your friends who told you there was a microphone on those, because I didn't think of that. But yeah, I have noticed a big difference, but maybe we need to upgrade even more.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna put it out there to all the cash slaves and people that listen to this. Go ahead and buy your boy some fucking earphones that work better on my podcast.
Just send money and we'll pick them out. People are
yeah, what she said. So
just send money.
Just send money. Go to Patreon.
Yeah, I don't trust people picking out stuff really.
Patreon.com. Yeah, I don't like Amazon wish lists at all.
I do
at all, because it's I can't I have a hard enough time shopping for myself. So it's like, what do you want on Amazon? I don't know, like Wagyu beef, a cut tourmaline, and
I could totally help you. I will help you with your Amazon wish list.
It's random.
That's okay. Random. So is mine. I put
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's unrealistic shit on there. Like, it just like that's what I did, was just like unrealistic stuff that I've always wanted that has a barcode.
There's realistic stuff too, though, that makes sense, that could just like save you.
Yeah.
Like I have basic shit on there that's just like,
Totally. I need to make a new one. I haven't made one.
That's what I'm saying. I could help you think of things if you're having trouble.
Totally.
Oh, I hear so much interference. Anyway. So yeah. Okay. So we'll figure out the audio stuff.
You want to introduce what we're talking about?
All right, everybody. So today we are talking about toxic kink practices, how to identify them, how to avoid them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We know the language is a little dicey. So you see a lot of red flag lists about fake DOMs or fake subs. That's something we need to remember in general, is that, where there's one, there's the other. So there's been some discussion in the community about the language we use to describe these types of players, right? That fake is not really the best word to use, because they're not fake, they're real. And as much as we want to say they're not part of our community, they like walk among us, and they are, and we are responsible for them. So fake was kind of a word which I always thought that made sense, but I see how that really does kind of put them in that light of like being not real. Toxic is another one. I mean, that's a provocative kind of word, like in how we describe things today, like toxic practices, toxic players. Another way we thought to describe it is surface DOMs or surface subs, people that are really just kind of putting on the outer layers and not really committing to the deepness of the investment in this type of lifestyle. And then someone else had put something that I saw recently, false. Someone else had wrote about false dominance and false subs. So whatever comes to mind when you think of any of those things, or if you have your own way to describe it, that's what we're going to be getting into today.
Well, as we go through those, I'd like you to also tell us what we're talking about, because I have so many different things to say about each one of those titles too.
Tell me which one of those titles feels best to you to use, and what you think about the other ones. Like, just
it's interesting though. Like, it's interesting though, because I hear the word false being used, and it's so simply attacking all the people that believe there's one true way for BDSM.
I believe
a lot of the old guard, a lot of the old guard believes that there's just this one, and the word they use is true, the one true way. So it's like a jab at that, and like, oh yeah, well, if it can be true, it can also be false.
I agree that it's a jab at that, like true, false. When I heard it, or when I read it, to me it registered as fake, faux, like, false in that sense, not as like true or false, a right way or a wrong way, but like, a false, a pretender. I think that's what they were going for, but that is an excellent point, and I wouldn't have thought of that. So yeah, so it's hard to pick, right? Like, which one makes the most sense.
Fake holds a very special place in my heart, because in online domination and findom, especially on Twitter, people complain about fake subs all the time. They're like, this guy won't pay, he's a fake. Like, if you don't get a payment from someone immediately, people are so quick to label you fake. So quick. And it's like, it's such, I see it when somebody starts crying that and like fake sub, fake sub, fake sub, as you obviously missed the point with this person and did not get payment from them, and that hurts your ego. As a cash dom, as a whatever it is, it's easier for you to scream fake sub than acknowledge that it might not have been a match. Just because they didn't pay you anything doesn't make them any less real in their journey. Yes, there are time wasters. There are people that will endlessly, endlessly talk to you and take up your fucking time. Just gotta throw that out there to a couple people. But it's just like you either shit or get off the pot. Like it's a very like that's why I love Findom, because it's like, okay, we're gonna do this from a distance. But to get my attention, to get me engaged in this, like you have to somehow show me you're serious with it. Just yeah, like it makes it real.
So you're talking about fake in the professional sense, and how some people like, it's almost in the professional sense, it's almost as though calling everyone who didn't buy your, product like a bad customer because they walked past walked past your booth. Like sometimes so the word fake for you in your professional, like in that professional way, it's like, yeah, you don't want to over identify and just call, oh, everybody's a fake because it wasn't a match.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's a blow to your ego. And like, if you're going to keep going the way you're going in the same way that you just attempted with that sub and don't see the advantage of vetting people, even when I meet cash subs, it's like, give me a list of people you've paid. Show me receipts. Show me pictures of things you've paid. Like, you have all these stories of things you've done for people, but are these people around that can still vouch for this?
You're really pointing out the red flags in this type of person, someone who is ego based, who cannot handle rejection, right there. Someone who is relying on, like, your experiences. Just because you tell me you've had all these experiences doesn't mean it's real. Who are these people? Like, that's another thing. Like so there's that crossover there for everybody.
To me, that is the mastery of BDSM. To be okay with being rejected, to be okay with being
self-mastery.
Right. Yeah. Like your ego has everything to do with this. How you walk into the dungeon, how you walk out of the dungeon, how you participate in life,
your relationships, your ego in your relationships and partnerships.
They can vouch for you, the people that can give you feedback and say, this person is this, that know you well enough to be like, if you're looking for this, talk to this person, because we know that this person is this. Nobody pumps their friends like that. Nobody fucking like match makes, like you do, because you have really good people in your life. People do not like vet people as much, in the sense that like when you're with your friends, like I don't know, there's not really a place to be like, oh, you should talk to this person because they're really good. Like, I don't know. We just don't see our friends as like not assets, but like as their strengths. Oh, do you want somebody that can do this, like X? You need to talk to this person. Like, we know this person so well that we can say that they're really good at that thing.
Yeah, word of mouth is great.
Yeah, word of mouth is fantastic, but that eliminates people from calling fake. I'm just thinking of the word surface. I'm trying. So go ahead.
Oh, yes. I was just going to say, in the example that you gave, in a professional sense, you're coming across a lot of people, like a lot of rejection. So it's easy to be like fake, 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 if you wanted to, because you're never going to see these people again. But there's a different level, of course, of respect. Yes, that goes a long way. I was just talking to someone about this last night, and I had talked to my coaching client about this as well, is starting to build that community and rely on the community in that way. Rely on your trusted friends and people. If they can't match make you with someone, they could send you in the general direction of,
confidently is important on that.
Confidently, and also that as well, the other way, when you meet people, use your friends to help you vet them as well, and all of those things.
Right. So what I would say about surface level, the word surface, I think it's unfair to make the assumption of how serious someone is by how they show up. some people could say, oh, they're so surface, they're so like they're not diehards, they're not fucking immersed in it like we are, you know.
I think that overall, I think what you're saying is that you don't want to walk into any space with a bunch of people and judge someone as any of these words by just what you see on the surface, what you see. And I agree with you, you know, in that respect. So like, that's just like a general life rule as well. Like, yes, you can't walk into a room and make judgments of everybody there. However, and that's one way to meet people is walking into rooms with crowded people. It's not,
right,
it's really not as common these days. Our communities have changed so much. So much is, like you said, meeting through friends and through meeting people online. And, you know, so there's in that aspect of things, you know, if we're going to call people fake or false, I think the word surface is so powerful in that way, because it's not a bad thing. And everyone starts at the surface and you have to dig to get to a good place. So I don't see it as like surface as I'm going to judge
right,
you by not having a conversation with you. I see it in surface as you've started to look at these things and you're maybe stepping into certain aspects that are just surface level and you haven't gone deeper yet because you don't know how, because you haven't had the guidance, because the education is not accessible, and you hear all these conflicting things because you think you're supposed to just meet a dom and things are going to go and be great, or you know, whatever, and you're going to have
right,
this elusive thing that you don't even know how to define for yourself yet.
right,
That's
right,
a lot of what I do in coaching, is navigate journeys with people and where they are in that, and being able to notice surface people who are in that surface stage. Like when you talk about these young doms or people that are just like, oh, I'm a master, and it's like, that's very surface. How do you see that? How do you know that going
right,
in? Because it
right,
happens and people fall for it all the time, where, you know, they're not, like you just mentioned, they're not taking the time to vet or process. You can't start a BDSM dynamic in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, if it's something that, you know, you're wanting to be a long lasting thing that's going to be in
sure,
your life in a traditional sense, versus like, you know, maybe that's not what you're looking for. But a lot of people that I work with are, maybe you're looking for pickup play or casual things. And of course that's all different. But when we're talking about doms that we see online or subs that we see online, I think a lot of them are operating at a place of surface. And my girl Aoife, who I love, her and another kink educator whose name I have to get to, I'll have to put it in here, they were specifically talking about how somewhere for all of us around the 2-year mark of our kink stuff is when we decide we're going to like start talking about it and telling people about, like, you know, how things are supposed to be. And they kind of identified this really interesting point in exploration where people do start to spout. And I think there are levels like that. And I think surface is one of them.
that's great. That's a the point at which your confidence reaches when you can finally pontificate about what you've learned in your journey.
And
So that's funny.
pontificate is an interesting word to use, because a lot of it, I mean, it's still, that is, depending on where you're at, that could all still be like very surface. It takes a long time to, you know,
Yeah,
come to be with these things. So that's one way that we could call it. And that's just what I mean. But I see what you mean, how that's not a great word either. There's no great word for it. You know, I think that's the problem, is that, like, you
right,
know, because I could say surface and just like someone else could say false, and you see it as false, true, false. And I see it as false, like faux, fake, not real. So it's really hard. Like, and like you always say, Arch always says that words always only have the power that you give
which
them,
you give them. Yeah,
you know. So,
true.
and we're in a position too where we're trying to reach a broad audience, and we know at some point you guys are like, okay, we get what you're fucking talking about, just like keep going. But the language is important, and like kind of talking about which of these words resonate and why, and differently too, how you're looking into fake subs, fake doms, and all of those things. I feel like in interesting that you pointed out, in the professional sense, you see people calling out fake subs all the time. And not that I want to see more of this, but like in a personal sense, I don't like, and where I'm sitting, I don't see that being something talked about. And I just have recently had not good experience with that. So it's interesting that those things sometimes in a social sense or in that way are not,
Well,
but
and
fake doms could get dragged.
Yes,
to,
absolutely.
across
Absolutely. It
any
goes
day.
both ways. It goes both ways. And I think that in the fake sense, like I can only see the good of that word using when there's a community of people like the community of findoms that are warning each other about a potential time waster. Because if you can take a warning from someone and know ahead of time how this person operates and don't fall for their bullshit that everybody else has, or like, like I see there is being real value in warning people about truly, truly fake subs. I don't know what the kink is. I don't know what the fetish is. I don't know what it is, except for people that crave attention. But to waste someone's time deliberately, why you would choose to just string them along like that is beyond me. And warning people that this type of personality exists within this person, even if they pay, like they could be like, look, I feel that the 45 minutes that I gave this person was not worth the $5 through Amazon that they sent me, like that doesn't make them fake, but it gives people the indicator that if you feel your time is precious, you might not want to talk with this person. So again, they're not
Yes.
fake, they're just a little time wasting, and I don't have the time in my day to recorrect you and reprogram you, so it's like I don't have the time to redo that. But if I can warn people and say, hey, like if you're looking for a sub that's gonna pay out small something, you'll at least get something. And some guys are just happy getting that Cash App tribute and showing the picture that they got tributed, whatever.
And I think that really goes, wasting time goes both ways in a
But
professional
it
and,
doesn't make someone fake, is what I'm saying. It doesn't lend itself to using the word fake for them.
well, you're saying you had just said that in your professional life, you do think it makes sense to let people know of fake subs that are going to be time wasters or whatever, or maybe only send you $5, but you wouldn't use the word fake because it doesn't make them fake, but it still makes them warning worthy like, people online will warn each other when someone ghosts them. They'll be like, hey, this is this guy, like, like, here's this guy's Instagram, talk to me for 3 months, and then like go, whatever, ghosted me, like, here's your, like,
but now, because I'm that guy in BDSM, not Findom. Take Findom out of the equation. In BDSM, in a community, would you consider it kink shaming if you knew someone and you knew that they were that slow burn that I was just talking about, the long time spent for very little reward at the little bit of progress that you're going to make with this person? Do you consider it kink shaming, warning people that that's what type of person this person is? Because everybody starts at their own level, has their own journey, has their own speed. Is it our duty to tell people, warning, slow burn ahead?
I don't think it's necessarily your duty to say if it's a slow burn personally. Like in taking Findom out of it and taking professional out of it, you're talking about in a personal sense. So
in the kink world,
I don't really see kink shaming as part of it, but I also don't see why you would go out of your way to say that, unless it was maybe you were being asked directly as a reference, or maybe like you saw your friends just added them, like maybe in those situations it might come up, but I wouldn't see that as a reason. Why do you think kink shaming, like the word kink shaming? I don't think that's kink shaming, unless like that was unless the person's kink was slow burn and they were like upfront about it and you were like, that's bullshit. That's kink shaming.
I just kink shaming in the way that I refuse to work with you and play with you because I work faster than you and I'm at a higher level than you.
I don't think that to the person you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think that's kink shaming. I think that's just being maybe incompatible. Because I think like that's a conversation to have in negotiations and this is why it looks different for everybody. And this is why coaching and getting into some kind of program and the investment is valuable, because identifying that all of those things ahead of time, that what you're looking for, and the pace is part of it. And I also think that there is as well a red flag in the sense of not necessarily just a slow burn, but someone without patience, I think is a
Yeah,
big red
absolutely.
flag. And I see
Absolutely.
with the surface stuff, I see that a lot, that people are
Mhm.
expecting that they are going to have, or they are calling it, you know, they are saying, I have a dynamic. I have this with someone I met 2 weeks ago, and it's really great. And it's like, I don't believe you. Like,
Right.
I believe you might think it's great, but like, I don't see how, like, not even just in like that frame of time, but it just seems like people are really, it's almost would be impossible to go through all of the things that, you know, you prep and invest in those relationships that fast and at
Do
that
you see a
rate.
red flag in reluctance?
Reluctance to what?
Training, to playing,
I,
to
I,
putting yourself out there when you're probably not ready to be there,
I see
and using
a
reluctance as like a coping mechanism to like the slow burn of like, if I keep them safe and in my life, but like at a distance, like we can keep this at another level.
I don't know. I don't know if I understand exactly what you mean. Say it again. What's the example?
Reluctance being putting yourself in the community when you're not exactly sure. Like you see a lot of profiles, it's like, well, I know I'm kinky. I know I'm kinky for this time, but I don't know exactly why I'm profiles, and just like
You don't know
unawareness of
exactly why what? Repeat all that.
why you're here, why you're in the community, why you're on FetLife, like whatever. And it's just like
I don't
reluctant,
reluctance to learn, you mean?
or just reluctance to putting yourself out there. But when approached and people are like, hey, what are you into? What are you doing? It's just like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm, like, I don't know. I just know I want a dom,
For
like,
me, that is part of the education gaps, like the gaps in the patterns there. And that's why people are like, how do you meet people FetLife? And it's like, it's very, like we talked about the investment that takes a long time to get to know these things about yourself, to articulate these things about yourself, and I mean, what I do see as a red flag more than the reluctance to, like, if someone doesn't know how to explain their stuff, or they're like a little scared to get out there, or they're like not sure what they want, I don't see that as a huge red flag, because I think that's natural and normal. What I see as a red flag for me, and I see it in clients too, it actually makes me not want to work with people when I ask, what have you done so far to learn about these things, to learn about, about this part of yourself? When did you realize this? And once you realized it, then what happens? Have you read books? Have you taken classes? Are you watching YouTube videos? Is a big one. A lot of people will say that, but I usually look for a little bit more like than that. Is there articles you read? Have you reached out? And like, because that's where I want to find where people are at and then help them through
sure.
those stages. So if someone has done no investment, and it's like, well, then what are you here for? Like, because regardless of what you're doing, whether you're doing something very complex or you're just fulfilling like a role or something niche or whatever, like it takes, no one just does it. It takes time and investment. So I think people being able to explain their investment there.
In my head, I just saw Steve Harvey, Family Feud, like, secretary. Show me. I saw Secretary once, and like, I saw 50 Shades, or I read 50 Shades. Show me why you're here. Show me why you're here.
Yeah,
And
like, is it up on the
top
board?
five
Like,
answers.
yeah,
Exactly.
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 Is it up
I saw
there?
Secretary once. Is up there. Like, three
Right,
people
right.
definitely will say out of 100, I saw
And
Secretary or 50 Shades once, and it interests
yes,
me.
right. And that might happen, like that is it happens.
Yeah.
But we have a responsibility, as a community, to just be aware of these things. I mean, when I first started kink education stuff and I started looking into it, I didn't know anyone else was like doing what I wanted to do, like the way I wanted to do it online and the way I wanted to work with people. I didn't see those things out there. And then I got to a place where I was seeing the education and I was seeing a lot of the same things. And I was seeing a lack in the nuance, the relationship part of it, the times when it's not great. It's like very often like not good, like things are bad a lot, and like people don't talk about that, I feel. And like, so I just saw these like these gaps that I wanted to try to fill. And yeah, if you saw the secretary and that's what piqued your interest, great. Like we mentioned in the first episode, it would be like watching a movie about the ER and then showing up to a hospital like, okay, I'm doing surgery today.
Right.
It's like, obviously there is a gap there. And, that's why we're trying to say that the media is so, off on what they're showing, and that don't believe all that. And so I look for like, what was the investment, what have you been doing, because it's not just the number of years, it's about the experiences and the investment. Right. Is this an ongoing thing, or is this something that you just want to do on a Tuesday? Like, oh, it just depends. There's so many variables and everyone is so specific, so none of our practices look like the other because of just life.
I wonder, like I'm kind of like, it's interesting to me. Like, I wonder with that analogy that I just made about Family Feud, like if anybody is doing like kink statistics, like we asked 100 doms this question and break down like the top 5 answers of what 100 doms would say about
I could do it on my
or
I could totally do that on my Instagram.
That type of statistical stuff like is fascinating.
Let's do that, because we could do that before this airs, because I could do that on my phone, and we'll see. We'll like, I don't know if I'll get 100 doms, but we'll see. I mean,
and it gives itself to like a choose your own adventure. Do you identify as dom or sub? For the ones that click dom, there's what do you consider? We're looking for the top 5 answers here, or like, hey, we need 20 doms and we're gonna take the top 2. Like, what are the top 2 answers that you think people are gonna say about a certain type of thing that just applies to doms or just applies to subs or switches, or it's very or general. We asked 100 kinksters what they think of when they hear the word blank. What does that mean to you? Top 3 answers. Go.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see like what we wanted to ask and what we wanted to find out about. Maybe we can talk about this, what we're talking about now, these different titles.
Top 3 answers. What do you think of when you hear the word toxic?
Right, exactly. Yes. What happens is that people will use the patterns. This is going to sound so obvious. It sounds like I'm going to be profound, but I'm not. People use the patterns and the latent embedded power dynamics of kink and kink relationships to hide behind and use unethically, and use them in these shitty ways to just get, if they want the attention or whatever it is. So there is a real opportunity there for someone with malintent or selfish intent, especially from the top, but also from the bottom, to really just kind of like slither into like these roles and expectations and control, especially when it comes around what you know and what you don't know, and education and progress.
Right.
Some doms want to see you grow and learn, and some of them want to keep you right here. Like, that's something to think about. And like, just making sure you're looking for those things in your partner as well, even though, you're on the top or the bottom or whatever. Like, you are a person and you have to have high standards and know how to have these conversations with people and all those things. And it's hard. And saying no is hard. I mean, I've had such good experiences and people ask me about it, and my kink relationships very much mirror my vanilla dating style, where I find a good person and there tend to be more long term, just like similar in nature, where I've been able to just invest in good people. But part of that is saying no to a lot of people and just more like choosing what you do want instead of waiting for what comes your way, and finding things and like making intent clear and all of that. But
and make every conversation an interrogation.
Is that to me?
No, just in general. Just in general. Sorry if that sounded personal, but
no, it didn't.
People don't get drilled questions at them.
You need to see how people react. You need to see how people react under pressure. And if they are able to use their words to articulate things, or if they're going to get very annoyed that you asked and like, you're a sub, you shouldn't be talking to me that way, or some fucking bullshit.
Exactly.
And then you could be like, goodbye, talk to you never. Like someone Green flags, calm, patient, not in a rush, explicit with what they want, could give you experience without hesitation, really willing to talk about their role and why and what that means to them, how long they've been doing it, what's changed and grown, what are your goals, like what are your personal goals, what are your kink goals, what are you trying to do, what's your like this is like a long time that it takes to like go through all of this stuff. And I just feel like those are not things you want to find out along the way. You want to find those things up front. You don't want to be 6 months in and then it's like the bunny suit comes out and you didn't know because you didn't ask. Like, figure this shit out ahead of time, have these conversations, plan things. Surprises are not good in kink.
No, but and part of the vulnerability that goes on in this is for some people asking questions, and B, like you said, how people react to having questions asked of them, and C, the vulnerability about owning your answer. How you feel about something is very vulnerable. Your answer to how you ask, like when you ask somebody something like an interrogation, like it's important again, like how they answer, and just like the vulnerability of giving an answer.
The vulnerability too is
truth.
on the vulnerability and the truth, and splaying out your feelings like that is something that's for everybody in kink. It is not just like a one-way thing. It is not as though based on roles that you need to be the one who's going to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is something that comes with basic relationship skills, which is something that I think a lot of people lack prior to coming into this. I was interested in just vanilla relationship support as a professional at a time. And I thought about, if school was free, I'd go do all kinds of things. But, I would like to work with couples and relationships and talk about those types of things. I was kind of looking at that prior. And then, so I think sometimes people lack those things when they come into kink relationships. And just because like vanilla relationships aren't for you, or your relationships are going to look a little bit different, there are obviously the common threads there. And a lot of them are things that kink does really well that the vanilla people would really benefit from if they even just got some basic communication and negotiations down. But those are, being comfortable with rejection and all of these things are relationship skills, human skills, and learning to be comfortable in uncomfortableness, especially when you are embracing vulnerability. Like if and you should be careful with who you're vulnerable with, but like it's such
and that goes for doms and subs both. Doms can be just as vulnerable, and if they're not showing that vulnerability to their subs and meeting them in that place of we are growing together, we are making this together, like I am scared, I am vulnerable, I am all these things right with you, except I have a little more mastery over my emotions to navigate this for the both of us, because that's what you've given me, is a beautiful thing.
Mastery or emotion is an important thing, and it's not necessarily something that the dom has just because he's a dom. But I guess if
no, but like the confidence that one has to be able to acknowledge that they're in a place of fear and vulnerability with their sub, and then regardless of that, they can rise above that and take leadership of the relationship and say, we're going to go through this together, but I'm going to lead us as well.
It's scary being scared. And these are feelings that aren't fun. And again, this is not the stuff that's selling movie tickets, is having these types of conversations.
I find them fun.
I do too.
Yeah.
But like, no one's taking their clothes off. Like we're not in latex with like tits out. Like, you know what I mean? These are conversations that, like
you've gone from bunny suit to latex with tits out. Like,
because those stereotypes are so important, because those are the types of things that we're trying to break, which goes along with the
I know it.
That is another just main goal for me in having these conversations, is that the education part of it and talking about it and making it relatable is going to hopefully get us to, or get us towards talking about journeys and kink journeys. Like a journey is a community to get towards a place where we don't need to be terrified that we're going to be found out or lose our kids or like have some horrible thing happen or be disowned by our families because what we're doing is just like so crazy. But like 80% of people are like doing it and just no one's fucking talking about it the right way. It really is like almost like Hollywood is set up for like breeding and fucked uppery. Like the secrecy in kink, although at one point was probably very effective based on the times and the resources, today has become such a toxic place,
mainstream,
such a toxic, dangerous place for not good things to happen. So, you know, we owe that education portion because just like in the real world, educating kids benefits everybody. Educating new people in kink benefits all of us. You know, it's not just for them to reach out a hand. Doing this more and more and giving other people the tools to have these conversations is going to really help with those overarching goals.
How overarching?
I've thought of that. Great is it? The other day when I think I wrote this overarching and I thought about you. I thought of something else with arch too, but I can't remember. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, how great is it as a coach too, to have this verbiage and like when you're saying all this and you use examples like bunny suit or latex outfits with your tits out, like you're just talking and you use that and then seeing your client like kind of light up a little bit like, oh my God, I can wear a bunny suit. Like, oh my God, latex. That's right. This is fetish. I can totally have a latex fetish, you know, like you using ubiquitous.
They're cliches.
Cliche.
And I use them for a reason. Yeah. I'm not just being an asshole. It's an intentional.
No, but how great is it when it like resonates with someone?
Yeah, I mean,
cliche can resonate with you.
It could be anything. There are so many possibilities of like cool things you could do to like enhance your life and your relationships and things. And
I broke up a marriage once because of this kind of this concept is kind of like what we're talking about right now is kind of relevant to it. One of my good friends, not in the lifestyle, in my hobby, and if you know, you know, I'm not going to go into it and out anybody or whatever, in my hobby. We had known each other for a while and like I went and visited him and his wife and like they didn't have kids, they didn't have anything or whatever, and like we sat down and like he just thought he was being like friendly and whatever, and it's like, so what do you do for a living? And I'm just like, well, how honest do I need to be with that? And he's just like, be as honest as you want, I'm not gonna judge you, like tell me, like whatever. So I told him the gist of what I do. And the cliche that I used for fetish, because I don't think he would understand like the leather. I mean, he would, but like the cliche that I gave was leather, latex, and some people like schoolgirls. Like I just kind of threw that out there or whatever. And he's like, okay, interesting. And they just kind of like, they were absorbing it or whatever. And then that night, when we had gone to bed, he looked at his wife and he was like, so schoolgirls. And she looked at him and said, no, gross, disgusting, we're done.
Well,
that was the end of their marriage because he was just like,
so again,
something resonated with him about that whole conversation that I'd given.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing that goes into having relationship skills and partners being able to communicate things to them and trust them in that way, because like this is not the first time this has happened, that because of stigma, because of the education gap, which is what I guess I'll keep calling it, you know, we are.
Yeah, like when are these people ever going to have a conversation about fetish?
What must it feel like? You know, so the boys on Keep in Mind had asked me that, like, how would you feel if you're, you know, how would you feel if your girlfriend asked you for a threesome, like, or whatever, some scenario type thing? And I was like, you guys are asking how you would feel if your partner came to you privately and disclosed a fetish or something that they wanted to do sexually and trusted you with that, and you're asking how you would feel. And that like reframed it.
Anything other than accepting.
Like, wouldn't you feel trusted? Doesn't mean you have to do it, but like it was just an idea. It's not like the guy said, hey, I realize I have a schoolgirl fetish, or like I'm into underage girls, or like something like, you know, that like you can't get past. Like he just said like, oh, so here's an idea, and she ended the marriage. I mean, like that's really so again, who are you guys picking as your partners?
Well,
Why
and
is everyone
here's
pick
the thing,
terrible, terrible partners for yourselves? I'll never get it.
like I just said, there would never be a time in these people's lives that they would ever have a discussion about fetish at all. They
And
were
that
perfectly happy going along in life without ever having that conversation until he asked me.
that is kind of how I feel about kink in general when we talk about like, you're either like vanilla or not vanilla, or you're into kink or you're not for kink, or kink's for everybody. Kink is not for everybody. I really see it as there are people who are willing to look at those parts of themselves and there are people who are not. So I think the people who are vanilla are people that are like this person just kind of turning a blind eye or being too afraid to even know. And like, that's okay. And that's a choice. And that is perfectly, fine to do. I think the thing that to remember is, why would people be talking about these things? Why would they be sharing them so much? Like, and understanding the game changer part of it. We're not just saying like, this is a new way to make like chicken parm, you should try it. We're saying like, hey, this is like a like very significant life-changing, game-changing thing. Like the vanilla public does not see that part of it. They just see like, oh, like latex and bunnies, and they're not getting the surface. Again, surface. Everything out there is just surface. They're not getting the deepness of it and why
is that a toxicity? Do you see that as a toxicity?
I think it's an intentional ignorance to take it. Like, I think keeping people dumb is a thing that happens pervasively. I think it's keeping people uninformed is a pervasive thing, and we need to be aware of that everywhere.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, I do see that as like a toxic thing.
What's the next topic you have? What's the next bullet point?
So we talked about false dominance. We talked about surface dominance. We talked about like fake toxic doms subs. I think we should talk about some qualities of maybe fake doms, and then we'll do fake subs.
Okay.
And I want to talk about from the perspective of someone who's like more experienced and someone who's sinister inexperienced, because just because someone's experienced doesn't mean that they're great. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like we did just say a lot of red flags, but specifically.
Okay. Narrow it down to the two. So as far
toxic
as
qualities of doms and subs, early and later.
Okay, so top 3 for a dom. Show me inexperience. Yeah, that's the number one answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
What makes a toxic dom? Inexperience with the combination of presenting of having experience. I mean, just being inexperienced, I don't think makes someone toxic. Hiding that you're inexperienced. We're all inexperienced at one thing or another, or at some point, I mean, again, and people who can embrace that.